Today's episode is about one of my biggest career insecurities, one that I didn't realize was a whole reoccurring theme until many years later. It basically starts in high school, follows me into college, and then hangs around for the first chunk of my career like annoying, bland elevator music. I didn't grow up around engineering. No one in my house was rebuilding engines or casually fixing complicated machinery. I didn't even know what engineering really was until my senior year of high school when I did a summer program at Temple University for women in engineering. That was the first time I thought, okay, maybe this is a thing that I could possibly do and do it well. Which is funny because my technical experience at that point was basically non existent. My brother, 2 grades older than me, was studying mechanical engineering at Penn State and told me that I'd probably like it because I was good at math and science. And he said, Christine, you're actually even better than me at math and science, so I think you should really consider it. So I applied to Penn State, I got accepted, and I ended up going. I graduated 4 years later with a degree in mechanical engineering. But even once I got there, I didn't have that tinkering background. Meanwhile, my male classmates were basically raised in garages. They grew up taking apart engines, fixing cars, messing around with tools. One of my friends even rebuilt his own Jeep engine. And his parents owned a hardware store, so he grew up surrounded by tools, different hardware, nuts, bolts, all sorts of things. Meanwhile, that was not my experience. Not really the same vibe. So, yeah, I felt really behind. And it hit me like straight in the face. I felt like, whoa, I was not expecting to feel this insecure. I felt like everyone else had a head start, and I was still figuring out where the starting line even was. I was really anxious about this, and I felt like I had to catch up, and I felt like I had to catch up in such a quick way. And it was this like running on a hamster wheel and not going anywhere. And I felt like I didn't even really know where to start to get that hands on knowledge. And I just kept having these like anxiety loops around and around in my head about it. Something that I did know that really helped me in college was that I grew up an athlete, so repetition and training was something that I was really familiar with. In swimming, I could just keep showing up and eventually I would get better by doing lap after lap after lap and really honing in on my technique. So I decided to apply that to school. If I couldn't tinker, I could outwork my male colleagues. And I did. I basically lived in the library like it was my second home. But graduating didn't really magically fix anything. If anything, my insecurities got stronger. My first job rotated me through different teams, and one project paired me with a controls engineer who was the ultimate tinkerer with a capital T. He had he even had like he would show up to work and he would have dirt under his nails. So like you knew that he was working on his car and doing all sorts of stuff. He was really into like racing, and you could just tell he was up late that night fixing something. And he would come in with like grease stains on his pants and really had this like full guy car guy energy. And during one of our days at the lab, he asked me to take apart this PLC. It was like a big PLC cabinet, and there were all these electrical parts in there. And he was like, I want you to take some things apart and put them back together. And I froze completely. And I was like, I don't know what tools I need. There's like some electrical stuff, there's some hardware in here. I just completely didn't even know where to start. And my anxiety really kicked in and started to cloud the part of my brain that could even access if I could figure something out. And I felt really embarrassed, and I felt like I didn't want to seem like I didn't know how to do something, but I sure as shit didn't know how to do this. And I felt so ashamed even more because I felt like this doesn't seem too hard. I just don't I just don't know how to where to begin. Because again, I wasn't exposed to that. And I wasn't really exposed to that in college either, which I kind of regret. Or not regret, I just wish that the program was set up a little bit more, that you had to have like a basic tool like class. So eventually though, I really had to stop obsessing about what I didn't know, which is really hard. And it was a really it was one of the hardest things that I really have had to do, because I had so much anxiety, and over the years I've struggled a lot with my mental health, which is something eventually I'll probably have an episode on that. And but I felt like, okay, what can I focus on that I'm good at, and slowly work on things that I'm not so great at yet. And it wasn't really in like a motivational way. It was more in a, okay, like what do I have to work with here? Like what skills do I have? Because we all are good at something. And I leaned into sports, which helped me. They taught me leadership, how to collaborate and motivate people and communicate. I was pretty organized too, just naturally, and good at pulling people together and information together to get a unified goal. So I leaned into that, and I slowly started to build hands-on experience that I didn't have. And and I think this leads me to have a brief, like just have a little share my brief thoughts on confidence. I'll have a whole other episode on that because I have a lot of thoughts on confidence. But I think for me it's about less about being feeling fearless, or less about trying to be fearless, and more about feeling functional, because fear is within like human DNA, just from evolutionary. We had to we had to protect ourselves against like saber-toothed tigers. So that fight or flight is still, I feel like, very much in within the human race. And then factoring in like all of the stuff through technology and just like our world right now is so, it can get overstimulating. So I think for me it's less about, again, it's less for me personally, again, I'll emphasize that this is my experience. I feel like it's less about striving to feel fearless and more about feeling functional. Like I feel okay enough with myself that I can function today, and I can put one foot in front of the other. And that really stems from me with having struggled with depression and going through waves of depression, and having days when I really couldn't function, and I struggled to eat. I struggled to do my basic things, brush my teeth, take a shower, have some breakfast. Like those are basic things that sometimes when I get really overwhelmed, I go back to the really, really, really basic things. And that's something my therapist has really helped me with. Like when you're feeling really overwhelmed, go back to break it down into really small steps. I know that sounds cliche, and but it has really helped me. Okay. So, on that note, insecurity, They didn't disappear. There's plenty of things that I'm still insecure about. The things that I talked about earlier with tinkering, I don't really struggle with that anymore. But there's things that I struggle with right now with working in a corporate environment, and that's something that I'll share my transition from working in government and defense and going into corporate pharmaceuticals. So, yeah, I think insecurities stopped being like the main character of my life. And I've been able to, through a lot of personal development and resources and people and tools in my toolbox, I've learned to work around them. And that is a continuous, lifelong journey. All right, that's today's episode. Catch you on the next one. Thank you so much for listening. If you're still here listening, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'll catch you on the next one where we keep unlearning outdated career advice we never asked for, but somehow absorbed anyway. Thanks. See ya.